Hey everybody, it's Tiana and welcome back to another video. So in this one, we're actually going to be doing a Q&A. I've never done a Q&A on this channel before, so very excited about this. And I went onto Instagram last night and asked you guys if you had any questions about business, candle business, whatever business in general. So you guys had a lot of really great questions, so I'm excited to answer those in this video. I'm going to try not to move too much because this chair is very squeaky, so I apologize in advance. But anyway, I have some questions on my phone that I want to answer, so let's begin. How did you discover how to use the perfect wick for your candles? So, wicking the candles is always just a chore. Like, to this day, I still test out different wicks in my recipe. Even though I have my recipe, I'll still go and test. So like last night, I tested it out and to see if do I need a wick down? Do I need to go to another wick? You never know like what's a better option until you test it. So even if you have your candle recipe and your wick, always go back and just test again, because you always learn new things, and maybe there's a wick that you've never tried before and it might give you a better scent throw, because sometimes the wick does play a role in the scent throw, so in the burn, of course, and all of that. So I'm always testing my wicks. So in my case, some wicks also, some fragrances do differently with my candle recipe. So in some, like with some fragrances I have to wick down, some fragrances I have to wick up. So it's always just constantly testing all of those different wicks. I have like a whole bin of all of these different wicks that I test in my candles. So it's ever going. The wick testing is always happening for me. How many hours a week do you believe it takes to run a successful business? So for me, I actually do this every single day. And I know everyone has different life situations. You may be busy doing, like for my in my case, I have a child at home. Maybe you take care of another family member. Maybe you go to school or maybe you work 2 jobs already. So like for me, I put as much as I can into it, but I think the key is doing it consistently. So if you at least put an hour to a day into it, you're going to eventually get somewhere. Now, you may not get as far as somebody else in the amount of time, because you never know, everyone's situation is different. So someone may have more free time to work on their business than you, but as long as you're doing it every day, being consistent, always taking those next steps, I think that's the key. But honestly, I put a lot of hours into this business. I usually stay up. So the other night I stayed up really, really late till like 3 in the morning. But again, I have a little one. My husband helps me a lot. He helps a lot with cooking, chores, and all of that. So I typically start my business like around 7 p.m. and then I'll work like 7 or 8, and then I'll work into like 2 in the morning. But I'm a night owl, so it doesn't bother me too much. When I launch my business, how many scents should I start with? I get this question a lot, which is interesting, but I think that we live in an age where online, we have our online stores, and all you need to sell something is the picture. So you don't have to like invest a lot of money in having things on your shelf. So as long as you have that picture up there, I would say maybe have 3 or so in stock. And then once you start to make sales, then you can gauge how many, like what's popular and what's not. Because if you make a whole bunch of scents that are not as popular as another, then they may just be sitting there and collecting dust, or it may take you a while to sell all those things that you made in advance. So like just make 3 or so. And I always say that like 10 is kind of a good point to start out with, because especially with Etsy, just the buyer psychology, when you have a store that looks a little bit more full, people are more likely to take you seriously. So if you open your store and you only have like 2 fragrances up, it might not look like you're a serious business, but you have about 10 options. I think that's a good start. yeah, a good starting point, but you don't need like a whole bunch on the shelf. I know some people do have like a long curing time for their candles, so you may want to take that into consideration, like how long do your candles take to cure. But again, you would have to know what are your most popular scents, so you can have those backups. But honestly, if you're just starting out, like 3 is a good starting point. How do you stay creative with your marketing? I guess keeping things fresh. I like this question because I like to do things very, very different. Like, I always like to encourage people to think about the blue ocean strategy whenever you are creating anything. So what this means is, you've probably heard me talk about it before in podcast. My students heard me talk about this, but try to figure out ways how you can make yourself stand out. You can take inspiration from other people, but how do you make yourself different from the rest? So this is how I always think about marketing, or whenever I create a product, or like, now with my YouTube channel, like how can you make it stand out a bit so it doesn't blend in with everybody else out there? Because when people start to go and search for your products on Etsy, like again, going back to buyer psychology, how does that little thumbnail stand out to somebody? What's going to make someone click on that image? Is it going to be the product itself? Are you putting a fun label on it? Is your packaging fun? Is your product photography nice? Is it trendy? So think of ways to make yourself stand out a bit. And the thing with this is, it can be kind of scary to go out of your comfort zone, because a lot of the times this doesn't mean you have to go out of your comfort zone, but it's just one of those things that you'll have to experiment with. And that's when I think about like my marketing, keeping it fresh. I just want to do something different. So I'm always thinking of things in my head. I'm always like playing out these scenarios of creative ways to put a spin on things. And I think that's the best way you can kind of go about doing this. So you can take inspiration. Like for me, I don't only look into the candle community. I look into different markets. So I look a lot into the beauty industry, because if you look there and you notice like how people react to different makeup lines, you'll notice there's something that a lot of people, like in the makeup reviews, they always talk about the packaging. If you notice, they always review the packaging. And so that's when I decided, like, oh, maybe I need to spend money to update my packaging, because people like to have these unboxing experiences. And if you look at the makeup community, you always see like they're getting crazier and crazier and crazier with the palettes. And it's literally just a palette. It's just makeup. But for some reason, people go crazy for the way it's presented. So is there something you can do to present your product in a different way? I saw like this candle line, and she did like playlists on her candles, and I thought that was so cool. Like that's the epitome of blue ocean strategy, like creating a candle and being able to like scan a QR code and it goes with a playlist. I think that's like an awesome way to stand out. So figure out ways how to stand out. And I think like in the candle industry, you kind of like we're taught how to make a candle a certain way, and like you have to do it kind of by the book. And I've never really joined any candle groups or anything, because I had my own ideas of how I wanted to make the candles, and it's not really by the book. Some of it is just stuff that I made up on my own, as long as it's safe to burn, and I'm not putting anything crazy in there. But some of the techniques I use are just things that I made up. So don't be afraid to like step out a bit. You don't have to do everything by the book. That's just my advice. How should I pay myself once my business starts to make enough money to support me? So this is, again, all up to you and your financial situation. So for me, I was working a part-time job until I just could not work it anymore, until the business started growing so much that if I continued to work my part-time job, the business would suffer. So I kept working that job and saving up money until I just couldn't work it anymore. And what that allowed me to do is have money saved up so that like for me, I provide insurance for my family. So with my part-time job, I was always providing insurance because my husband is considered self-employed. And so with my part-time job, that's how we were getting insurance, and we still needed insurance. So I saved up a lot of money so that we could still have insurance. And with my business, I honestly don't pay myself a lot. I think this year I've probably only paid myself like $5,000. And that's just because I enjoy putting money back into the business. There's not anything I really need personally at the moment where I need to like spend money on myself. But like I said, everybody's financial situation is different. So if you need to pay your bills and do all of that, you're going to have to think about like how much you want to pay yourself every month. $1,000, $500. That really is up to you. So I know this goes against a lot of entrepreneur advice where they say pay yourself first. I like to keep my money there, and whenever I have an idea, then I spend my money back on my business, because I just like doing it. I like watching the business grow, doing new things with it. I enjoy the experience of doing new things with my business that of course need money. For instance, when I do, like, I've purchased a lot of things to help update the video quality, and of course, like, the studio is an update and it looks nicer in the videos, in my opinion. So that's just how I spend money in my business, but it really is going to be up to you and what you decide. That's why I always suggest, like, if you have a way to still kind of work part-time to save up money, that would be like the best option in order for you to be comfortable with your business, because you need money to advance. So for instance, another question is, how do I market my business? So I do YouTube, and of course, like, the YouTube channel is a part of my marketing, but also like having paid ads, that takes money. So that's something that I'm looking to invest into. And also I just hired my brother on as PR, and that's what he does for a living. He does PR work in California. He's done work for some of the drag queens on RuPaul's Drag Race, and so he knows what he's doing. I've never been able to hire him before in the past, but now we're going to do kind of a 3-month campaign together to see about getting me into publications outside, like trying to market myself outside of YouTube. So that goes back into marketing, but it all goes back to money, having the capital to invest and keep growing your business. So that's where I'm looking at now as far as marketing. So YouTube channel, and then paid advertisements, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. And I don't hit the Facebook and Instagram ads as much right now. I did a couple campaigns just to test the waters, but my advice with that is I always like to collect like Facebook pixel data, so that when you go to run ads, you are marketing to a warm audience and not like a cold audience. I don't know if you guys are too familiar with like advertising, but I've been collecting like data for the past 2 years on my website. So when I go to run ads, that my money is going to be spent wisely and not wasted on clicks where people aren't likely to purchase, if that makes sense. So that all ties back into marketing my business. And let's see, how do you handle inventory? So when I first started, I would be using spreadsheets. And so the spreadsheets were great and an inexpensive way to kind of keep track of everything. But now that the business has grown, I've been using CraftyBase, and this has been amazing. I'm actually going to do more videos about CraftyBase and kind of do my walkthrough on how I use it, but it's very in-depth. So I'm just going to show you guys like a walkthrough of how I use CraftyBase, but I absolutely love this program, and it helps me to it automates a lot of things, and that is going to be something I'm going to talk about in just a second. Automation is a great way to keep your business running without you going crazy. So automating a lot of things, and so CraftyBase helps me keep inventory. It also helps you with pricing your products. It helps you break down the cost of everything. It helps you like make sure your inventory isn't running out. It runs reports. It's an all-in-one as far as keeping track of expenses and inventory. One thing CraftyBase doesn't do for me is to keep good track of income. So it does connect to all of your sales channels. So it connects to my Etsy, Shopify, and Amazon. So whenever I make sales, it automatically goes into CraftyBase. But when I have other streams of income like YouTube, other whatever stuff. Crafty Base doesn't keep track of that, so I still have to use another tracking software to get an idea of income. So I use QuickBooks. But Crafty Base is great for the inventory side of everything. I had to fix the lighting a bit, so I hope this looks a little better. I have a really hard time staying focused. I start 37,733 tasks and lose focus. Organizing, help. Okay, so a couple live calls ago, my students and I talked about this because this is something that you run into when you start your business, and you really don't think about it too much. You're mainly focused on the candles until you realize all the back end stuff that goes along with doing this. I spend more time on the computer than anything else. I probably spend like 10% of my time making candles. All of the admin stuff is really what gets you. So I always say you've got to make a plan. Like I think the saying is, if you fail to plan to fail. I think that's the saying. So if you come up and you don't have like a plan, if you don't have goals, so I have goals, like income goals, which I think this is someone also talked about, asked a question similar. So when I have goals, it helps me out a lot. So one of the first goals I hit was like wholesale. My goal was to be able to have a wholesale platform where people can come and shop online easily, because like I've said in the past, there's no way to like really wholesale easily. You think it would be. They do have platforms, so like fair.com and stuff like that are platforms you can join, and it does cost money to join, but I wanted to be able to wholesale to customers without having a middleman. So that was one of my goals, and I was able to do that, in the past few months. Now we have 10 wholesale clients. But that goal has been on my Trello board for 2 years. So you always have to make sure you have goals. And then I always would look at that and I would say, okay, what can I do? What are the little steps I can do to reach that goal? So little steps meaning research how to make my website be able to have a wholesale login. Research how to, come up with wholesale terms and conditions, how to reach out to the wholesale clients, how to deal with wholesale clients, how to make templates when they like email templates, how to do the wholesale form, all these little steps. You need to write those down and then work those into your workflow. So nothing's a quick fix. Nothing's going to be quick. So like I said, this was 2 years ago when I had this goal. And so it wasn't until a few months ago where I actually opened up the wholesale platform. So you always have to have a plan. So I have plans for when I have $20,000, I have a plan, which I'm not far from that. There's something that has never ever been done. I'm so excited. And it's going to cost me about $20,000. And I have another crazy plan when I reach $100,000, another crazy idea for candles. And these sound like big goals, but don't be afraid of big goals, because honestly, if you would have told me like 2 years ago that I would have $20,000 to spend on like a project, I would have been like, what? That doesn't even make sense. But eventually, if you keep working at it, like you got it. But I'm always someone who believes that you just got to work hard, or work, just believe you can do it. There's no limit really, as long as you are believing in yourself and working towards it. You're always going to learn more, and it's not going to be a smooth process the whole time. Sometimes you're going to fail, sometimes you're going to be frustrated, but you're always going to be learning in the process. So make plans. I use Trello, I've used Notion. I was using Notion for a bit, but I switched back to Trello because I like the automation that Trello has. And recently I've been using an app called Zapier. So what Zapier does is it helps you automate. So for instance, with the wholesale thing, when a customer goes and fills out the wholesale form on my website, I have a little, they call it a zap. So there's a zap that will start this process of like triggers, and when they fill out the wholesale form, it's going to of course tag them in my email platform, which is ConvertKit. So they're going to be tagged, that email is going to be tagged as a wholesale request, and then it's going to actually take that email, the person's name and email, and it's going to make a card in my Trello board. So all of these things are happening at once without me having to do anything. So then it's going to make a card in the Trello board, and once it makes a card in the Trello board, it's going to email me. And then, so I have all these processes set up, and then once I get that email, I have a wholesale template that I can email to the client, and it's a template so that I don't have to retype it out every time. So you're going to have to figure out ways of how to automate things and make it easier for you so you're not feeling overwhelmed. And it's a hard process to kind of figure these things out. And also, when you do start to get to the point where you have a little bit of money to spend on your business, start thinking about outsourcing. So I like to always teach people how to do everything themselves, because that's the best way to save money. And then when you get to the point where you need to outsource, you can spend the money that you're making on outsourcing things. So like, for instance, the other day I hired somebody on Fiverr. So I used to always do the product, like editing the photos myself, but now it's to the point where I don't have time to do that. So I hired someone on Fiverr to do it for me, and they literally did a better job than me. So now I'm going to update all of my product photos, and like, all I had to do was send him a zip file. He did his thing. A couple days later, he sent me the files back. So this has saved me probably hours and hours of work, updating my product photos and all of that. And of course, you know, there's things I need to always be updating, because now that I'm learning and growing, I need to update things, because there's things that I wasn't that didn't look so good back then that I realize now. So one of the things were some of my product photos needed updating. Outsourcing, so that's going to help you save time. So the thing is, you got to figure out what needs to be outsourced and what you still need to do, and where you find these people to outsource these things to. And yeah, so like I said, I hired my brother for PR. I was actually going to take an online course how to do like the PR stuff myself, but I figured I do not have any more time in the day to take a course and then also learn how to do PR, plus learn how to, or still do all of these other things. So I took that money and I hired him on to do that, because that's what he's a professional at. He can do it better than me. And yeah, so that, when it comes to saving time, that's a really, really big thing. You got to make plans. Starting a new Etsy shop, making sales, and making your first sale. So that's probably the hardest thing, is making your first sale. And one thing I notice is that I call it the friends and family wave. And what happens is, when you start your shop and your friends and family start to find out that you started a shop, they're going to be really excited for you. So make sure you're sending them over to your Etsy shop and not doing cash exchanges or exchanges through DMs or Cash App or anything like that, because those stats of them buying something and leaving a review are going to help you get more customers to your shop. So make sure, like, if your friends and family do want to buy, send them over to your Etsy shop, so that your Etsy shop will have those stats that you've made sales and that you like have the reviews, because that is another kind of buyer psychology thing. The more reviews you have, it makes someone more comfortable purchasing from you. When will the Candle Academy open again? I feel like my business needs this. So I know a lot of you have been asking about Candle Biz Academy. I get every day people asking me about this, and I know it's long overdue, but there are certain things I just really want to have in place before I open it back up. But after I do this product launch, I'm really going to be hitting it hard. It's not, the things I have to do aren't super huge, but I really want to just update some information about candle making, update my recipes, because I give my recipes out in the Candle Academy, and I have a whole new recipe now, so I want to update that. And just there's a few little updates I need to do before I open it back up. So I'm definitely going to be keeping you guys posted on Candle Biz Academy. I'm really excited for all of the updates, and thank you guys. But my camera's about to die, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the Q&A here. It was really fun. I'm so glad I got to answer these questions, but I will see you guys in the next video, and until next time, bye guys.